Welcome to No Falls Week. No Falls Week is a campaign from the No Falls Foundation, the UK charity dedicated to the work at height sector. No Falls Week is a campaign designed for organisations across all sectors that work at height. The purpose of the campaign is for organisations to focus on work at height safety and promote safe working at height. Today, we're going to be talking to three of the ambassadors of the No Falls Foundation who have all experienced a fall from height themselves and looking at their own experiences. We're going to start off by asking some questions about their falls from height. So can you tell us about your experience of surviving a fall from height and what were the circumstances leading up to the fall? Paul?
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Anna. I'm Paul Blanchard, Joint Ambassador for the Foundation. We're all coming from life-changing experiences from falling from heights. What I was doing was on a Sunday morning, actually, it was back in 2010. I'd done a job for these farmers several months before, and they'd rung me up several times. And maybe put me under a bit of a pressure because I was busy about some repairs on the barn. Well, anyhow, I went out on a Sunday morning, and I made several mistakes myself. I was to blame for quite a lot of things, but I ended up falling. I fell through a skylight, which I'd had removed to replace. And about 14 foot it was, it's what I fell on. And I was out cold. I was in a coma, induced coma for 3 months. I'm paralysed now, along with several other injuries. What went wrong that day? The challenges that I and my family have to face every day of our life. Because when they say an accident's life-changing, it's a bit of an understatement. So we're facing the challenges of being in a wheelchair and the problems that come along with being paraplegic for forever. Now, it was a mistake, partly on my fault and partly and mainly on theirs, to be fair. In fact, I was prosecuted about the whole subject about it. But I ended up paralysed, broken ribs, punctured lung, head injuries, and like I say, and what bothers me more, maybe more than the physical for there, the responsibility that my family has had to take on, because I can't do what I ought to be able to do as an able-bodied person. That accident was avoidable. All accidents are avoidable. It's just the right approach, the right attitude, care and attention. Yes, fair enough, acceptance of risk and loss of fear, a bit cocky, if you like, arrogance. However, these are circumstances that people are faced with at times. Pressure to earn money, lots and lots of things. But an accident will change your life forever. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Skelhorn. I'm one of the safety ambassadors for the No Falls Foundation. Back in 2011, I fell 33 feet from a chimney stack while working at height, and it's changed my life forever, really. Now, I had been a firefighter for 6 years, and I considered myself quite a safe person. And the company I worked for, they didn't really have a good safety culture, and they gave me a fake dispensation saying we had permission to work at height without safety harnesses, which I didn't really believe, and I should have listened to that little voice in my head and a gut feeling tell me it was wrong. But you know, thinking about money, paying the bills, that was sort of my priority, and I put that first, and that's really why I had the accident. So I went up on a chimney stack with a safety harness when I should have been, I should have had full protection equipment. And like I say, it's changed my life. I'm now classed as 40% disabled, degenerative arthritis in my pelvis, my lower back. It's going to affect me for the rest of my days. I've had lots of knock-on effects from that as well. It's affected my family's lives, people around me. And as Paul said, that's what happens when you have an accident. It doesn't only affect you, it affects everybody else around you.
Hi, I'm Anker. Also very proud to be an ambassador for No Falls Foundation. My accident was in 1993 when I was just 24 years old. At that time, I was working as a roofing labourer on a construction site. And at the end of shift, a rush job came in, unplanned work, and was asked to try and get a 2-hour job done in 1 hour. Much like Dylan and Paul have spoken about before, pressure of getting the job done, pressure of not speaking up. I chose to work unsafely. When I fell 10 feet from a ladder, suffering life-changing spine injuries but I'm paralysed from the waist down and will spend the rest of my life in a wheelchair.
Thank you, guys. I just wanted to ask, following your accident, what were some of the immediate challenges that you faced, and how did you cope with both the physical side of things and also the emotional trauma after your accident?
So it's such a shock when you have an accident. I think you don't really, it doesn't really hit you till later on. Physically, the challenges for me from getting out of hospital, I spent 5 days in the hospital, and just the simple things that you take for granted. I couldn't even climb stairs. I would have to sit on the stairs and push myself up backwards. Going for a shower, I couldn't even step over the shower tray, which was only about 6 inches high. I would have to pull myself up on the sort of bar that goes across for the door, which could have collapsed. Really dangerous, but that's the only way I could do it. So little things like that, putting on my boxer shorts, I couldn't even do that. I wasn't going to get my parents to do it. I lived with them at the time. So I had to order a couple of, these leaf grabber things where I could chuck my underwear on the floor and pull it up with those. Simple little things like putting on clothes. You can't do these things. And it's a huge effect on you. Emotionally, like I say, I don't think it really hits you at the start, but when you start to think about it, it hits you quite hard, and you've just got to get on with it. You can't really, it's happened. There's not much you can do about it, and I think you've just got to try and stay as positive as possible. But that's a hard thing to do when you've had an accident where your life's been turned upside down, when your life's sort of been ruined. So yeah, it's a huge challenge to face, but now with the No Falls Foundation, hopefully we can help people. They don't have to go through those sorts of things on their own like we did, at the time, because things like that weren't around at the time.
Yeah, my accident, being told you was paralysed, I was 24 years old. I was told I would spend the rest of life in a wheelchair. And I think the wheelchair is probably the visible thing that people see. But actually being paralysed from the waist down, you face a lot more challenges, a lot more personal challenges. Being told I'm doubly incontinent for the rest of my life. I have to wear a bag on my leg for my urine, the daily routine, emptying your bowels on a toilet. So accidents in the early days especially was quite frequent. And I think that was a part of an accident that people don't sort of see. They see the wheelchair, but don't actually see the other parts of it, which not only was causing me a physical disability, was really affecting my mental health at the time as well. I had a young marriage, 2 young children, and I can remember on visiting times, you'd always put on a brave face, you'd always smile. I was in hospital for about 4 months after my accident in the spinal rehabilitation unit. And you get visitors, you'd always smile, put on a brave face, and they was probably doing the same thing. It was a very traumatic time for me as the injured person, but also you need to realise the effect it has on family and friends as well.
Thank you, Jason. Talk about the physical effects about it, but you had your accident in a coma for 3 months. You're coming around steadily because you're still very heavily doped up, if you like. But then the realisation that you are going to be paralysed for the rest of your life, the fear factor about that, and how are you going to cope? How's your wife and family going to cope? And the psychological effects is unreal to accept something like that in your mind. And every day since my accident, the challenges you have to face. I've been in hospital 3 times since my accident for pressure sore, stone bag fitted it, and etc. Sepsis, all consequences of an accident. So this is the issue you have to have about it, and basically echoing quite a few things that Jason and Dylan have said.
Thank you, Paul. So we've talked a bit about the immediate challenges that you faced, following in the months following your accident. But what would you say are the ongoing effects or any challenges that you facing, sort of now still?
Well, to tell the truth, being in hospital initially was quite easy. It's all set up for wheelchairs, flat floors, everywhere's adapted. It's when you come out of hospital. I was in there just over 4 months, coming out of hospital to an unadapted property. My young marriage quickly broke down. My wife left with my 2 children. I just found it really, really hard to cope. but also really hard to talk about how I was feeling. My mental health was at a really poor stage. Unfortunately, I went down the route of alcohol and later drugs as well. And it's not uncommon, you know, it's not uncommon that when people are struggling, they'll just reach out. I was seeing a counsellor, he was giving me antidepressants, which I was abusing as well. I found the first year of coming out of hospital really, really challenging. And there's many occasions when I actually thought to myself, I don't really want to be here anymore. You know, it was a really dark time. And, you know, and Paul will share their stories about how they actually cope when they come out of hospital. It's not just you as well. You see the impact it has on your family and friends. It's a really, really challenging time for everybody.
Yeah, for myself, physical pain every day, and there's no real pattern to it. Some days can be good, relatively. Some days can be really bad, but you never know when it's coming. In the hospital, my bladder was pierced with a catheter. It was inserted wrongly just as I went in, straight in there to the emergency room, and that's still playing on me to this day and always will. The pain can come on when I'm driving along in the car, which, you know, could be dangerous, and things like that a lot of people would never, you know, connect with an accident. There's a lot of things, and then it goes down to simple little things like when I get out of my car, or when I drive into a disabled space and I get out of the car and I'm not in a wheelchair, and people stare at me, and you know, you get these looks sometimes, and I know that's a small thing, but this happens every time I go to the supermarket, things like that. You know, simple little things like that to the big things like the pain. It's an ongoing thing. It's always there. Things that I can't do around the house anymore, you know, certain jobs that I would be able to do before my accident, I can't do it anymore. And sometimes you think you're still that person that can do those things, and you're not. You know, your life's changed because you made one mistake one day, and it's following you forever. You know, an accident never leaves you; it follows you for the rest of your life. Pass over to you, Paul.
Yeah, well, what I found really is when obviously when you come out of hospital and you have this acceptance and you're facing the challenges of life every day, what equipment you need, what wheelchair suits you, and etc. And then the realization that your house isn't fit for purpose. So then you have to go through the trauma, if you like, of having to move house and redesign or look at the design of a property that is going to be suitable for somebody in a wheelchair. Wet rooms, for example, ramps for in and out property, etc. And believe it or not, you could easily take your driving license off you. I did sort of not a driving test, but a mini assessment, let's say, where you could get in there and get used to the hand controls. But they have got powers to be able to take those sort of things from you. But the challenges are for you every day. And I don't think, well, the obvious thing to say is you don't realise what you've got until it's gone.
Thanks, Paul. So you've talked about various challenges that you faced, like Jason, you mentioned with your mental health. Paul, you've just said about things like whether your property, you know, is suitable, etc. So what support was there for you after the accident to help you deal with those challenges?
Well, initially when we come out, in hospital, I was in hospital for about 8 months in total. There was a little bit of things. Like I said, there wasn't no counselling, to be fair, like I mentioned about the mental effects. But when you come home, the nurses come back to our property and etc. Make sure you were sort of semi-suitable. But the unknowing of how to cope generally, and the pressures that my family was put under, because I was obviously paralysed, and the challenges that they had to face with things. But we come home, and then there's just every little thing becomes a big thing. You know, how to be able to go to the bathroom or not go to the bathroom. But the bed baths that the wife used to have to do for bowel care. You know, I mean, I know actually not a very pleasant conversation or things to talk about, but that's exactly what happens for it. Like I say, it's so life changing. It's quite unreal. And again, to repeat what I said about having to move home and readjust, learning to drive differently, learning to live your life differently. In full fact, really. But like I said, we didn't have no psychological counselling and etc. And I feel like that was one of the things that I'm a bit concerned about, to be fair. But I think the mental bit, mentally, to be able to cope with it it can help you along on the physical aspects. If you're stronger in your head, you can be more stronger in your training, if you like, your adaptation to things.
I agree with Paul. There was more physical help than there was mental help, emotional help. The NHS care was great. You know, I went to physio, acupuncture, all these things. It didn't really help, but there was stuff like that there, and they were always trying to try me on something new to see if that would work. But like I say, emotionally, there wasn't really anything. And I used to sit there thinking, I wish there was a website I could go to that I could just, you know, find out the answer to my next question. What is my next move? What is my next step? What do I do now? And thankfully now we have the No Falls Foundation, which is great. But we didn't have that back then. So I think it's a great thing that we've finally got this now.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of you. You know, 1993 was absolutely nothing. The care I had in the rehabilitation centre was fantastic. But the moment you left there, it was just nothing. You know, I wasn't sleeping. I was in a real depressive state. Went to the doctors who just prescribed antidepressants. And I can remember the term he used. He says, "Oh, you'll take a couple of years to get used to it." And that was basically my counselling for the 2 years. And I didn't get used to it at all. And again, as Dylan will talk about next, at a bit more length, the idea of the No Falls Foundation providing some mentoring services. I have a chat with Dylan, me, or Paul to just help people and advise them of the process that will go down. You know, there's so much to talk about. You know, housing, the massive issue. I moved to unadapted property, which is unadapted for about a year, so I can even get on the property without help. No adapted bathrooms or toilets, so it was like a minefield. But again, the mental health side of it was the bit I really struggled with. And as Paul mentioned, maybe if I'd had some help to be stronger, I might have coped with the situation better. So I think, you know, the foundation helping with the mental side of it and the mentoring side of it, which I think I'll pass on to Dylan now to talk about a bit more length of his experiences.
Yeah, so is that the main type of support that you'd wish that you'd had? Obviously, you mentioned in terms of mental health, counselling, perhaps. Is there any other support that you would have found helpful too?
Yeah, I suppose initially, as Paul mentioned, you know, especially an injury where you require specialist equipment like a wheelchair. You know, you leave hospital in like an NHS wheelchair, which is just not fit for purpose at all. So, you know, get help with wheelchairs, or even advise what wheelchairs you actually need. You know, the lightweight wheelchairs today are quite expensive, but this help you can get from the NHS. So I think being advised of help that's out there is quite useful as well.
The support that I wish I'd had, as I say, more emotionally and mental at the time. But since the foundation has been formed, I've been mentoring 3 people now, and I think it's really important. We've been getting great feedback about it. As I say, I wish I'd had this at the time. So things like, at the time when I had my accident, I wasn't told anything by the people that I think I should have been told it by. I just happened to find out certain things just by luck, you know. My lawyer told me, "Are you claiming industrial injuries benefits? You're entitled to that." No, I've never heard of it. I've never been told about this. And that was just on the off chance that they said that. So things like that, you know, I think it's really important that because we've been through these things, we can pass on our experiences to other people, and hopefully it helps them. Things like, you know, help with, you know, choosing a lawyer if you need one. The industrial injury benefits, as I say, things like that. What's my next move? Oh, have you tried acupuncture? It worked for me. Or have you tried this? It didn't work for me, but it may work for you. All these kind of things that we can pass on, you know, our bad experience, but it's a negative, yeah, but we can now turn it into a positive and pass it on to other people. So I think it's really, really great that we can mentor people and you know, pass on, as obviously, like I say, our negative experiences, but for them it's going to be a positive thing if we can pass it on to other people. We need to get the No Falls Foundation, you know, to be seen out there. We need to let people know that it is there and it's free and it's available to everybody.
I totally agree, Dill. Yeah, you know, this is a service that I think it can be so useful. You know, them early days after an accident where you haven't got a clue what's going on. You know, laid in hospital, You've been told you're going to spend the rest of your life in a wheelchair. You're laid by their very self. Thoughts just racing through your head all the time. And I think it's that in them moments, them early moments of someone having an accident, the foundation is all about preventing falls, and that's what it's all about. But being realistic, we know people do still have accidents, and fall from heights is still the biggest injury and killer in, especially in the construction industry. So any kind of help we can give, or the foundation can give in those early days after an accident, are so important and so critical.
Totally. I find, I know Dylan's really involved with mentoring, but we're all available for it. I often go in places, not to do about presentations with mechanics, but I'll go in, and there's a wood yard down the road, and I often go in there at lunchtime, snack time, etc. You don't have to say anything. It's just your presence is a reminder, when people can see your challenges that you have to face, just even going in and out a door or going to the bathroom, etc. It's just a reminder to people that do not let this happen to you. You don't have to say anything. You just need to get on with life. And again, fair enough, the practical things were quite good. There's little things, a lot of things we had to find out for yourselves and etc. about what care and attention and what gear you need and etc. But like I say, I always think about that mental counselling. And again, to repeat or reiterate what the lads have said, that the foundation is great. And if I know you do it, I know you do, to look at that aspect of the help, if you like, you can give to people, the awareness, the knowledge.
We just touched a little bit there on, preventing falls, because as you said, Jason, it's still the leading cause of death in the workplace, and, responsible for thousands upon thousands of accidents every year. What advice would you give to people who are working at height to prevent falls?
I've been involved in speaking now for 15 years, and I've obviously been invited to a lot of trade events, etc. And you see the amount of equipment they have today, which is sometimes mind-blowing. The amount of safety innovations there's been in working at height over the last 15 years since I've been speaking, but over the last 20 years in construction, the amount of machinery, equipment, all designed to help prevent working at height. And yet we still hear of people who actually choose not to use the equipment, or choose to use the equipment incorrectly. This belief it will never happen to them. So hopefully by sort of sharing our stories and our presentations, it does happen. I find it still sad. I fell off a ladder, untied ladder on the building site. And I find it so heartbreakingly sad today that my accident is still happening today. Where people are still choosing to go up ladders untied. It's a choice, and I think all we can do is try to educate people who are working at height, educate supervisors and management to have a better understanding of why people sometimes choose to work unsafe. It's not always black and white. So I think it's educating everybody that you don't survive up the fall from height. I do a lot of presentations. I often used to get told by people, I had a fall from height 20 years ago, I survived. I'm not like you. I got away with it. But after a little bit of digging, you find out I couldn't play football anymore. I've not met anybody yet who's had a fall from height who got away with it absolutely injury-free. You don't survive a fall from height. There'll be some lasting injury you'll suffer. And even if you get arthritis in later life, like Dylan is going to struggle with arthritis because of his injury, it's going to get worse and worse. So, the thing about fall from height is there's no escape from a fall from height. It's a lifetime of an injury that's going to get progressively worse.
Yeah, totally agree. Just do the right thing. I think most people know what's right and what's wrong, but we put other things first, like you say. We all, we were putting money first, paying the bills, that sort of thing, looking after the family. There'll be people out there that work for certain people, like who I did, that would be happy just to send you up there because they're not the ones up there. But I always say, listen to your gut feeling, listen to that little voice in your head. If you don't think it's right, speak up and ask the question. And at the end of the day, the person that's going to do that job, has got the power to stop that job and not do it. And I'm not telling people not to do their job, but just, if it isn't right, don't do it. What are you actually, you know, I always say, what are you getting if this goes wrong? 1 day's wage, it's not worth it, you know, it really isn't. So always work at height safely if you have to, and if you can eliminate it, you know, don't do it. You know, that's the best way of preventing anything from happening. But if you must do it, you must do it safely. You know, gravity works on us all. There's no person in the world that gravity doesn't work on. We can't, you know, to try and fight it without using fall protection equipment, it's not going to work. You're going to end up seriously injured or even worse. So, you know, just do things as safely as possible. If you must work at height, do it safely.
Well, it's a bit like if you fall from 50 or 60 foot, you're dead. Or 99 times out of 100, you're dead. When you fall from, well, my fall was from 14 foot. When you fall from a moderate height or even a lower height, that is when you end up with a life-changing injuries. So there's a conversation. And whether it's complacency, whether it's acceptance of risk, like I mentioned earlier on, maybe a little bit more care and attention is taken when you're at 60 foot. When you have a lower thing. I won't say it's cockiness, it's not arrogance, and it doesn't have to be boring about safety. It's training, safe practices, and self-well-being. And this is what you need to do. Not because to work in the morning and think they're going to end up in hospital. So you just go out to work to any daily care and just get on with life. Hopefully enjoy your job. But you've got to give yourself care and attention and do the same practices, the right practices, do the job properly. And this is what you got to do. That's what I think the fundamental thing is. Look after yourself.
Thanks, Paul. You did mention there a couple of words like complacency, for example. And, you know, we look at the figures again last year, and there was, you know, tragically 40 people who lost their lives due to a fall from height. And actually, when you look at the labour force survey statistics, you know, they're saying that up to as many as 33,000 people were injured from a fall from height, and that's just at work last year. Why do you think these numbers remain so stubbornly high? Because every year we look at the figures and they're, you know, similar. They don't seem to change. So why do you think that is? Do you think it's complacency, or are there other reasons behind it? And what do you think we can do to try and address it?
Well, it's obvious that hazardous practice working from heights, and it speaks for itself about it, doesn't it? So you need what the foundation is doing is fantastic. We're very proud to be involved with it. And going back down to education, complacency, acceptance of risk, the right training and the right approach to work. And I'm going to echo what Jason said a few minutes ago about how safety has improved. Of course it does. But you're not going to take away that failure in human nature. Maybe they've done it for weeks, never going to happen to me attitude, and etc. But you just got to get involved with that safe manner of working, the right approach, realise the dangers and the consequences might be from falling from heights. Like I say, it doesn't have to be boring, but people have got to be aware about it, and most people are. But if somebody can tell you, I have to put. You only need a split second to fall, don't you? You only need to put your foot on the wrong plank or whatever you want to call it. One bit of wood, missed a handrail or something like that. Just that little thing, that little slip that can do it. But education, it's like what the foundation is doing now. But these figures aren't good. 40 fatalities, 33,000 people who've had a life-threatening injuries from falling from heights. There's something wrong out there. So it just needs to be addressed, doesn't it? An approach. And again, I'm going to echo about the foundation.
I think working at height is one of the most dangerous practices that we do. And I think that's why the numbers are always the highest. You know, the figures are always up there. But, you know, this morning I looked at something on social media, and there was a picture of a ladder going across from a ridge to a chimney stack, and there was one guy sitting on the chimney on the ladder, and another guy sort of counterbalancing on the ridge. Now, as we know, we shouldn't be using ladders horizontally, but I looked at the comments and it was just unbelievable. You know, people saying there's nothing wrong with that. Fred Dibner did it 40 years ago. He was fine. Yeah, Fred Dibner was lucky. You know, he was one of the lucky ones. Us three aren't. You know, it can happen, and it does happen, and the figures prove it. But I think people's attitudes are, you know, some of the comments that were said on this thing this morning, if the customer wants to pay an extra £1,000 for a scaffold, then I'll get them one, but then I'm going to lose the job because they're not going to pay that. Well, is your life not worth more than £1,000? What's £1,000, you know? And this is the problem as well, you know. Everybody tries to cut corners to save money. And I believe that, you know, I think you should be licensed to work at height. I really do. I can get a van today and hire 2 young lads from school tomorrow and send them out to do working at height with a couple of ladders. And that's wrong. I think that is really, you know, it should be more policed. It should be governed more. You should be qualified. Make sure you're qualified. You know, this should be the minimum to work at height. And I think that's the issue. People have a go at working at height when they don't actually know what they're doing. You know, and that's what we were all doing, wasn't it? You know, we did it the wrong way, you know, especially me going up on a chimney stack with a safety harness. But I thought it won't happen to me. It always happens to somebody else, and here we are, you know.
Great point, Dylan, as well, that was. And I think also when you look at the figures, you often find that the large construction sites we work on are relatively safe. You know, we are still incidents, but it's mainly the medium and smaller companies, you know, the guys who are pitching for that job, £1,000 for scaffolding. It's how we reach those guys. And you also find that, as Dylan mentioned, you're getting some people who are not fit for purpose working at height. You know, alcohol and drugs are very rife. You've got people who are drinking far too much, sleeping in poor accommodation, working from home, not eating properly, problems with the marriages at home, etc. We've got sort of mental health issues, or working at height. And there's no regulation whatsoever to help, prevent, stop, encourage people to speak up or refrain from working at height. So, you know, I've not thought of it like that before, Dylan. I think it's a really valid point. But what we're going to do, because as I said, 15 years of me, it's not really dropped. It was 50, 55, 40, 45. That seems to be, we've hit a level, it's not changing. So what else can we do? You know, we need to do something different, and maybe looking at the smaller to medium companies and asking why are people being put at work to height in safe manners.
Can I add something? A little still experience I had about 2 years ago. I had a roofer on I've known him for years, to be fair, like. And this lad who worked for him was only 21. His mother rung me up. She was in tears, and she said, "I'm going to come back to the mentoring, I'm afraid." And it felt 21-year-old. His life changing, he'll never work again. He's not paralysed, but he'll never work again. That roofer, who I've known for years and years and years, didn't have any insurance for this young lad. So there's a hell of a lot of problems going on with that. I'm sorry if that spoiled the thunder about the flow of things, but I just thought I'd chip in with that experience about things.
I think it's very valid, Paul, because I think what we're experiencing at the moment with the credit crunch and people cutting corners just to earn some money echoes back to my father-in-law at the time. He had no insurance. It was a recession. He was just trying to get work for his lads. So even though he potentially was one of the causes of my accident, you know, people are struggling for money at the moment. So people are more likely to take that job on and not get the scaffolding because it saves £1,000. So it's wrong, but you can sort of understand why people are choosing to do it. And as Dylan and Paul both said, no one believes it's going to happen to them. So £1,000 scaffolding, or take the chance, it'll never happen to me. And that's where we are. How do we educate people further? It's just not worth taking the risk.
But on a positive thing, the consequences to the employer for something going wrong have gone through the roof of recent years. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, my father-in-law's business never recovered. It was only a small business, 5 people, never recovered. He lost his house, he lost his business, people lost jobs, all as a result of my accident. So, you know, the small companies taking these gambles need to understand the potential risk of what could cause. You know, someone could be injured or fatally injured, but then the personal effect on your own personal life, loss of house, marriages, this is a consequence.
I think that's a really good point, Jason. And I think you're right. A lot of, especially the small to medium-sized businesses, often, you know, they're not thinking about the consequences, not just for the person who falls, but for, you know, everyone else involved as well. You mentioned about education and, you know, what can we do to help educate people. And how important do you think campaigns such as No Falls Week are in that education process?
I think they're really important. You know, we need to spread the word as much as possible. I don't think at the moment everybody knows about the foundation, and I know that I've been talking about it through my presentations. I'm sure Jason and Paul have as well. So the more we can get that word out there, the better. But yeah, I think it's really important that everybody gets on board with it, and we have these campaigns, and the No Falls Week is really important to get that message out there.
And what the foundation is doing is terrific, and you've got to drill it out there, people. It's again, it's visible out there all the time. Every film I present to, I ask about the safety record. Might be brilliant. Well, right, that's good, but you've got to keep it up. You can't let things slip. You can't think everything's all right, we'll just plod on. You need to be inventive. You need to be progressive, and etc. And it doesn't, again, I've said it 2 or 3 times, I know it is. It doesn't have to be boring, but it just needs to be present. All that reminder of what things can go wrong and what you need to do and have to do to keep yourself safe.
Yeah, I just think what you both said. I think No Falls Fan Week is a fantastic week. I'm not a big fan of campaigns, but if we need to highlight the risks of working at height and have a no Falls Week and really get out there, and hopefully more and more companies will become sponsors of No Falls Foundation. You know, construction has a real poor record regarding fall from heights, and we just need more supporters. And hopefully this campaign will highlight the risks of working at height, but also encourage people to join the foundation as well.
Okay, well, I think that brings us to a close for today. Thank you so much to our 3 ambassadors, Dylan Skelhorn, Paul Blanchard and Jason Anker. Really appreciate you sharing your experiences following your falls from height. I know it's not always easy to talk about, but I think you've made some really interesting points today, and it's really interesting to hear about your experiences after your fall from height and the challenges that you faced, and your thoughts on what the foundation can be doing to not only help people who've had a fall from height, but to try and prevent falls going forward. No Falls Week will be happening the 13th to the 17th of May. The idea, as I mentioned earlier, is that organisations participate in the week and highlight not only the risks of falls from height, but also promote safe working at height during that week. You can sign up to take part at nofallsweek.org. So please visit the website and sign up, where you'll find a host of resources to allow you to participate in No Falls Week. If you've experienced a fall from height, or you know anyone who has experienced a fall from height, please do get in touch with us to see how the No Falls Foundation can support you. Please get in touch or visit nofallsfoundation.org.